Greetings to all my tech heads out there in the KevTechify Nation, and if you're new here, welcome. In this episode, we're going to look at saving configurations. We'll be discussing configuration files, altering the running config, and then finally capturing that configuration file to a text file. This episode is part of my series on Introduction to Networks. I'm Kevin here at KevTechify. Let's get this adventure started. Section 5 of this episode is about saving your configurations. You go through, you set up your device, you want to save your configurations. If you don't save it, then when the device reboots, it's not going to have anything to load into. It's going to load into a blank configuration. Nothing's configured. IP addresses, permissions, security, routing protocols, none of that's configured. So what you want to do is you want to save that configuration. Just like working on a term paper, that you want to save it every couple of minutes to make sure you do that. Because if you turn off your computer, you lose power or something like that, any changes you made is gone after the last time you saved it. So you want to do the same thing on your Cisco devices. As we look at this, there's two configuration files we're going to be concerned with. One is the startup configuration, one is the running configuration. The startup configuration, that's what's stored in the NVRAM, the non-volatile RAM where you turn it off, loses power, you turn it back on, it's still there. It's non-volatile. That is sort of your startup file. That's the startup configuration. When you turn on your device, it boots up, it reads that file, it loads all your configurations in. The other configuration is your running config. That's stored in RAM. Remember the first one was NVRAM, non-volatile RAM? This is just RAM, random access memory. This is the memory where you lose power, it's gone. It's gone. But this is what's loaded in memory. This is how your device is working currently. So what happens here is you're going through, you're making all the changes, you're making the configuration changes. That's in the running configuration. These changes in the running configuration, if you don't save it, are going to be gone when you lose power. But this is how your device is operating. So you go through, you make all your changes in there. Once you're done, you save this. And now how we save this is we do a copy command. If you like this episode on saving configurations and you get value out of it, and depending upon the platform you're using, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. Doing this supports the channel, which in turn helps me bring you more great content. Subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell. You can also visit my website at KevTechify.com for all of my details and how to get these episodes in video and podcast form. You're in privileged exec mode, and it's just a simple copy. It's the copy command. So it's the word copy space. Once again, that space signifies the end of the command, and then you put your options in there. What you want to copy from and to. So you want to copy from your RAM, your running memory, your running configuration into that save file, that startup config file. So it's copy space running dash config space startup config. That's how you save your files at that point in time. Fairly easy process to do that. You can do several things with that. Altering your running configurations. One command to know here is how to reboot your router or switch, how to restart it. The command in the Cisco operating system, that's reload. Reload is the command to reboot your device. You make some changes, you want to make sure you have your saved config and it all works good. You simply type in reload. It may ask you to confirm it. You just go ahead and hit enter at that point in time, and it's going to reboot it. Now, how do you reset your device back to factory settings? Once you're logged in, you're in privileged exec mode, you erase that startup config file. You erase that file it reads when it starts up. Because if there's no startup config file there, it takes you back to initial configuration. In privileged exec mode, it's erase space startup, goes through, it asks you once, are you sure you want to do that? Yep, go ahead. It erases it. Now you type in the reload command, and you would get back to the initial configuration. So if you're working on labs or something like that, You will erase your startup config, you'll reload it, and you'll be back at a nice starting spot. One of the things you might like to do is save your configurations out. One of the easiest ways is actually to capture what is being displayed on your screen inside your terminal emulation program. Here's an example from PuTTY. And what we do is we open up the settings. Underneath session, underneath logging, here is we go in there and we say we want to get all session output. Where do we want to save it? Give it the name of the file. You can tell it what directory to save it in. And anything that's printed new on this after you go ahead and click OK will be saved to that text file. What do you do then? At that point in time, once you start this logging with all the session output to the file and directory you want, I would do a show space running dash config. That shows all your configurations that's in RAM. It would display it on the screen. But because you have logging turned on, it will also log it to that text file. So now you have a record of that. You have a record of what your settings were, backup in case that router, I don't know, catches on fire or something like that. You get a new router in there. All you have to do is paste that configuration back in. Or at least it'll remind you how you had everything configured at that point in time. Let's say you're all done saving everything to that config file. What you have to do is go back into your PuTTY setting underneath session and logging again, and just simply go to none for the session logging. At that point in time, when you click OK, it'll stop logging to that text file. That's one nice, simple thing you can do to save your configurations to a text file. It was my pleasure to provide you with this wonderful episode on saving configurations. If you like this episode and you got value out of it, and of course, depending upon what platform you're using, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. This all helps me bring you more great content. Please take a minute to subscribe to my channel. All of my socials and contact information are on my website, KevTechify.com. You can get all these episodes in video and podcast form. In the upper right is my playlist for my series on Introduction to Networks. In the bottom right is one of my favorite videos. Thank you so much for watching this episode of my series on Introduction to Networks. I'm Kevin. This is KevTechify. I'll see you next time for another great adventure.